Okay, just think about it for a second. The sheer range. I mean, classical, rock, flamenco, blues.
Jazz, country, pop.
Exactly. What other instrument just, fits into all of that? It's got to be the guitar. It's just everywhere in the music we hear.
It really is pretty amazing how it's managed to not just stick around, but actually thrive across all these different styles and, well, centuries, really.
And that's exactly what we want to dig into today. We've got some really interesting material, and our goal for this deep dive is basically to pull out the coolest stuff about the guitar.
Yeah, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding its journey, how it's built, the basics of playing it.
Right, without it feeling like homework. We want you to walk away feeling like you really get this iconic instrument.
We're shooting for those aha moments.
Mm.
The bits that make it all click into place and show why it's so central to music.
So let's go way back, because the story, according to our sources, starts much earlier than most people probably think. Like, really early.
Oh, yeah. We're talking ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt. Maybe 3000, even 1500 BCE. Think about things like bowl harps, long-necked lutes.
Wow, okay, so those are the really distant relatives.
Absolutely. These are the ancestors. It kind of changes your perspective on how old the fundamental idea is, doesn't it?
Totally. You picture rock stars, but the roots go back millennia. And then Greece and Rome,
Yeah.
instruments like the kithara, the lyre.
Mm-hmm. And what's really cool is the name itself. Guitar probably comes from that Greek word kithara.
No way! So the name itself has that ancient echo. That's fascinating.
It really is. Language holding on to history like that.
Okay, fast forward a bit. A really key moment seems to be when the Moors came to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, right? 8th to 12th centuries.
Yes, a huge influence. They brought the oud, that pear-shaped, fretless instrument.
Right. I've seen pictures. How did that influence things?
Well, the oud was hugely influential on the European lute, which is, much more direct ancestor of the guitar. Its shape, the strings they used back then, playing techniques, it all got absorbed and adapted.
So the oud was kind of like a catalyst. It provided the ideas.
Yes, the sort of musical and design toolkit that landed in Europe and just started evolving.
And then 14th century Spain, that's when we actually see the word guitarra pop up.
That's right. And interestingly, not just one type, but two early forms mentioned in our sources.
Oh.
Yeah, the guitarra latina and the guitarra morisca. Different shapes, maybe different strings or uses, reflecting all the cultural mixing happening there. Definitely a step closer to what we'd recognize.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient lutes to these early Spanish guitars. How do we get to the instrument we see today? The classical guitar seems like the first big milestone.
Yeah, the modern classical guitar really took shape late 18th, early 19th century. And there's one name that just stands out. Antonio de Torres Jurado, a Spanish guitar maker, a luthier.
Torres Jurado. Okay, got it. What did he do that was so important?
He basically set the standard, made the body bigger, refined that sort of hourglass shape we all know. And crucially, he developed fan bracing inside the guitar top.
Fan bracing, what's that and why did it matter so much?
Okay, so imagine the top of the guitar needs to vibrate, but it also needs support. Fan bracing is a pattern of thin wooden struts glued underneath the top, fanning out from the sound hole. Before Torres, guitars were often smaller, quieter.
Ah, okay.
His designs, especially the bracing, allow the top to vibrate more freely, but still be strong. Result: much more volume, better projection, richer tone. Suddenly the guitar could fill a concert hall.
So he basically gave it its modern voice, allowed it to be a solo instrument in a bigger space.
Pretty much, yeah. A huge leap. And it was also around this time that we get the 6 single strings becoming standard.
Ooh.
Tuned EADGB.
Instead of the older doubled strings, the courses.
Exactly. That switch to 6 single strings simplified things in some ways, but also opened up new harmonic possibilities. It's the tuning most people still learn today.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's hop across the ocean. 19th century America. Steel strings start appearing. Why the change?
Well, music was changing. You had more bands, ensembles playing louder music folk, early country stuff. Musicians needed guitars that could cut through, be heard alongside fiddles, banjos, whatever.
And steel strings are just louder, brighter.
Yeah, inherently brighter and louder than the gut or nylon strings used on classical guitars. But steel strings also put way more tension on the guitar top.
Ah, so you couldn't just slap them on an old guitar?
Not really, no. This is where C.F. Martin & Co. comes in. They were pioneers in building guitars designed for steel strings, and their big innovation was X-bracing.
Okay, first fan bracing, now X bracing. What's the difference?
It's another internal support system under the top, but shaped like an X. It's incredibly strong. It provides the stiffness needed to handle the pull of steel strings, but still lets the top resonate powerfully.
So it's like structural engineering for sound.
That's a great way to put it. It allowed for that big, ringing tone we associate with American acoustic guitars, essential for folk, blues, country, everything, really.
Right. Okay. Classical steel string acoustic. Now for the big one, the electric guitar. This was purely about volume, wasn't it, at first?
Pretty much, yeah. By the 1930s, big bands were loud. Acoustic guitars just got lost in the mix. They needed amplification.
And the first attempts were interesting. The frying pan.
Ah, yeah. George Beauchamp and Adolf Rickenbacker. It was a lap steel guitar, basically a solid block with strings, and the crucial invention of the electromagnetic pickups.
Pickups. Okay, how do they even work?
Basically, you have magnets wrapped in wire coils under the steel strings. When the string vibrates, it disturbs the magnetic field, creating a tiny electrical current in the wire. Amplify that current, and bingo sound.
Clever. But the frying pan wasn't quite the rock and roll machine yet.
No, that took people like Les Paul and Leo Fender. Les Paul was experimenting with solid body designs, his famous log to stop feedback, that howling sound you get with hollow bodies at high volume.
Right, feedback's annoying.
Exactly. A solid body fixed that and also gave much more sustained notes ringing out longer. Then Leo Fender came along and just mass-produced genius. The Telecaster in 50, the Stratocaster in 54.
Icons, absolute game changers. Our source says they changed music forever.
No exaggeration. They were relatively affordable, easy to work on, sounded great, looked cool. They put the power of the electric guitar into everyone's hands. And that just unleashed, everything. Rock and roll, blues rock, metal, funk.
You really can't imagine modern music without them. The global impact is just staggering.
Totally transformative. It wasn't just making music louder. It created entirely new sounds, new ways of playing.
Okay, what a journey. So let's zoom in on the instrument itself now, the actual parts. Anatomy 101 for the guitar. Where do we start?
Let's start at the top. The headstock. Pretty straightforward. It holds the tuning pegs or machine heads. You turn those to tighten or loosen the strings, changing the pitch.
Got it. And that little strip the strings go over just before the neck starts, the nut.
The nut, exactly. Crucial little piece. It guides the strings onto the fretboard, keeps them spaced correctly, and it's the endpoint for the string's vibrating length when you play an open string, which affects intonation, whether the notes are in tune.
What's it made of, usually?
Oh, could be bone, synthetic bone, plastic, graphite. Different materials can have subtle effects on the tone, how long the notes ring out.
Okay. Then the long part, the neck,
Right.
with the fretboard on top.
For the fretboard or fingerboard is usually a nice piece of hardwood like rosewood or maple. And embedded in it are the frets, those metal strips.
And they're placed really precisely, right?
Oh, absolutely. They divide the string into exact semitones. Press down behind a fret, and you get a specific, predictable note. That's fundamental. And hidden inside the neck.
Something hidden.
Yeah, usually. The truss rod. It's a metal rod that runs inside the neck.
What's that for? Sounds structural.
It is. See, the strings pull on the neck with a lot of tension, constantly trying to bend it forward. The truss rod counteracts that pull. You can adjust it to keep the neck straight, or with just a tiny bit of curve called relief.
Why would you want any curve?
A very slight concave curve can help prevent strings buzzing against the frets, especially when you play harder. Getting the truss rod adjusted correctly is key for playability.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the main part, the body. What's going on there? It's not just an empty box, is it?
Not at all, especially on an acoustic. The top, or soundboard, is the star. It's thin, resonant wood, and it vibrates like crazy when the strings vibrate. That's where most of the sound comes from.
And the back and sides?
They shape the sound, they reflect the sound waves inside the body, adding tonal color, warmth, projection. Depends on the wood, the shape, everything. And of course, the sound hole lets all that sound out.
Right, and the bridge, that sits on the body too.
Yep. Two main jobs. Holds the strings firmly anchored at the body end, and, crucially, it transmits the string vibrations directly into the soundboard. Got to have that connection.
Okay. And on electrics, instead of a sound hole driving the sound, we have pickups again.
Exactly. Those magnetic coils we talked about. They sense the string vibrations and turn them into that electrical signal. That signal is weak, though, so it goes out through a jack to an amplifier.
Amplifier makes it loud. Got it. So that's the hardware. What about actually playing it? For someone starting out, what are the absolute basics?
Well, number one, tuning. Getting those 6 strings to the right pitch. Standard tuning, E, D, G, B, E, thickest to thinnest, is where almost everyone starts.
But you mentioned alternate tunings.
Oh yeah, lots of them. Things like drop D, open G, they change the relationships between the strings, make certain chords easier, gives a different sound. Very common in folk, blues, rock. Lots of genres use them.
Okay, so tuning first, then making noise.
Right. Two hands doing different things. One hand is fretting, pressing strings down behind the frets to choose the notes. The other hand is making the strings vibrate, plucking or picking.
Fingerstyle versus using a pick.
Exactly. Fingerstyle uses your fingertips, maybe fingernails. A pick or plectrum gives a sharper attack. Then there's strumming, hitting multiple strings together rhythmically, usually for chords.
And then things get fancier. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends.
Yeah, those are expressive techniques. A hammer-on is like tapping onto a fret with a fretting finger to sound a higher note without picking again. Pull-off is the opposite, lifting a finger off to sound a lower note.
Bends sound cool.
They are. Physically pushing the string sideways on the fret to raise the pitch, like a voice crying out. Very bluesy, very rockiness.
Yeah.
And slides are just sliding smoothly from one fret to another on the same string. Adds fluidity.
Sounds like there's a lot you can do just with how you touch the strings. What about the theory side? Chords and scales.
Fundamentals. Chords are multiple notes played together that create the harmony, the backdrop. Scales are sequences of notes, the building blocks for melodies and solos, for improvising. Understanding basic chords and scales opens up playing tons of songs.
And reading music, is it all standard notation, like for piano?
Some guitarists use standard notation, sure, but very common for guitar is tablature, or TB.
TB, how does that work?
It's super visual. It basically shows you 6 lines representing the strings and numbers on the lines telling you which fret to press. Really intuitive way to see exactly where to put your fingers for a riff or a melody. And then you have chord charts, just simple diagrams of the chords.
Makes sense why tabby is popular. Okay, we've covered history, anatomy, playing basics. Let's circle back to that amazing versatility. How does it adapt to so many styles?
It's incredible. Take classical. Usually nylon strings, played fingerstyle, focusing on intricate compositions, dynamics, tone quality, very refined.
Then jump to flamenco. Very different energy.
Oh yeah, still Spanish roots, but highly rhythmic, percussive, lots of fast strumming rasguados tapping on the guitar body sometimes. Very passionate. Blues, what's the key there? Expression. Those bends, slides, vibrato, making the guitar sing or cry, often uses pentatonic scales, giving it that characteristic blues flavor. Electrified blues really took it somewhere else too.
And rock.
Yeah.
Well, that's electric guitar territory, right?
Dominated by it. Loud amps, distortion, heavy riffs, solos that can be incredibly technical or just pure raw energy. The electric guitar is rock in many ways.
Jazz seems more complex, maybe.
Often, yeah. Focus on complex chords, sophisticated harmonies, improvisation. Jazz players need a deep understanding of theory, scales, chord voicings. It's a different kind of virtuosity.
And then country pop folk, maybe more about the song.
Often, yeah. Guitar might be providing the chord structure, a nice finger-picked pattern, a catchy riff to support the singer. Still totally essential, just maybe not always the lead voice. Strumming is huge in these genres.
It really is a chameleon. But it's more than just an instrument, isn't it? The source called it a cultural symbol.
Definitely. Think of the players who became icons with a guitar in their hands. Jimi Hendrix, Andres Segovia, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Eric Clapton, Paco de Lucia. They didn't just play it, they showed what was possible, inspired millions.
True. And that legacy lives on. You see guitar festivals, competitions everywhere. So many people play it.
And I think its accessibility is part of that. You can pick one up and learn a few chords relatively quickly. That makes it welcoming. It feels achievable, even if mastery takes a lifetime. That creates a huge global community.
So wrapping this up, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From ancient harps to, a Stratocaster wailing away, constant change, constant creativity.
It really has. And through it all, it maintains this kind of universal appeal. It speaks a language people understand, whether it's played super quietly for one person or blasted out to a stadium. That connection it creates is pretty special.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is it about this combination of wood and wire that keeps sparking so much creativity, so much passion, in so many different ways? Or maybe think about it this way. If you don't play, was there a guitarist, a song, a style that first made you notice the guitar? Maybe now's the time to listen a bit closer to that.